Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
This is Comics Evolved with myself, Andy, Alex, and Jarian. We're here today to talk about the Marvels trailer that dropped earlier on today. Some big stuff in there. Jarian, let's start with a synopsis.
Yeah, so the synopsis is in Marvels, Carol Danvers, in Marvel Studios, the Marvels, Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, has reclaimed her identity from the tyrannical Kree and taken revenge on the Supreme Intelligence. But unintended consequences see Carol shouldering the burden of a destabilized universe. That's interesting. When her duties send her to an anonymous wormhole linked to a Kree revolutionary, her powers become entangled with that of Jersey Sitter superfan Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel, and Carol's estranged niece, now Saber astronaut, Captain Monica Rambeau. Together, this unlikely trio must team up and learn to work in concert to save the universe as the Marvels.
Awesome. Alex, what are your first thoughts on this?
Oh man, so I instantly think back to that line where Carol Danvers says that she was out there in the universe helping other worlds that had to deal with the problems after Thanos and everything like that. And I feel like this is kind of what's happening here. I feel like, we see potentially maybe Ronin's daughter or somebody related to Ronin in this as the villain. It looks like they have Ronin's hammer, that giant staff that he carried around. I think they couldn't chose a better song for this trailer. Intergalactic, I mean, it's so perfect. And the switching spaces, it's great. And I love that they threw the jump points in this trailer and in this movie as part of this, because we know the jump points are a big part of how they navigate space. So it seems very fitting that Fury is now in space with Monica Rambeau trying to figure out how the jump points kind of operate,
Yeah, sure. I mean, you've touched on something really there right at the end. Fury's there.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that leads on from WandaVision when we saw the Skrull talking to Monica and saying, somebody up there wants to see you, or he wants to see you, and points up to the sky. And obviously, we know that this is later on this year in November. So we've
10th.
got Secret Invasion. Yeah, November the 10th. So we've got Secret Invasion coming soon. Are we going to see Fury get out? We're obviously going to see Fury get out of Secret Invasion, or is he a Skrull? Or is the Fury in Secret Invasion a Skrull? Is the Fury we see in the Marvels a Skrull? Is he just going to survive? Obviously, he's not with a load of Skrulls in this. He's on the Saber headquarters, which is something new. We've not seen that before. That's not from the comics.
Yeah. We don't know when this is placed in the timeline, because remember that the Marvels was supposed to be out the beginning of this year. It was supposed to kick this phase off, and then because of delays, it got pushed to July, and then now with the whole Marvel rescheduling, it's now going to be November 10th. But we now know before I go on, so Fury could be, like you said, he could be a Skrull, he could be himself. This could be pre-Secret Invasion. So it's one thing to keep an eye on, what actually falls in the timeline. A big thing, though, we now know where the other bangle is. So it looks like Zay Ashton's character had the other bangle on in the screenshot in the trailer when you saw her with the hammer as well. So interesting to see, how she got that, because we did see a Miss Marvel, like Alex we were talking about, that it was on a Kree arm, and so at some point Kree were on the Earth, and when did it get off Earth? Is there more story to tell? Before the Marvels, before Captain Marvel's first movie, after Captain Marvel's first movie, in between, and so forth. The other thing, too, is that we also got a description on Monica Rambeau's powers, right? She did say they are light-based powers. And then also, too, more Flurkins, right? We saw a whole barrage of cats, which I'm going to assume are more Flurkins, because we know that Goose is back, as we saw in the jump point switching. I agree with Alex that the trailer music couldn't have been any better picked. I think we talked about that music. I remember sometime I mentioned Intergalactic, and I think it was in reference to the post-credit scene during one of our Miss Marvel recaps. So it's very good to see. I'm excited about it. The team dynamic, is going to be interesting, because they have to become a team. And an interesting thing too from that synopsis, a destabilized universe was Monica going towards a possible incursion type thing? That shield, that power source, is it a possible Kang tie as well? Some kind of energy source or something like there. So could that tie into somewhere with Kang? Yeah, but Saber is interesting because where's Sword? Because last we knew that Monica Maria was working for Sword. In WandaVision, it was Sword. So was Monica. We're all a part of Sword, but now it's Saber. And I mentioned we talked earlier in the group. What does that stand for? And I'm thinking, what, strategic aerospace battalion emergency response, possibly, because kind of I'll play between Shield and Sword maybe with that. So who knows?
I feel like saber is just another word for sword there, so it's just like them calling the sword base saber. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like
Yeah.
them coming up with like something different, and it kind of reminds me of the Watchtower with Justice League. It kind of gives me those kind of vibes a little bit. But I think one of the most interesting things, and I was sitting there thinking about it while I was watching this trailer, is since they're kind of like changing spaces in space, it's almost like I feel like we're going to get a fight where they're all three going to be alternating spots
Mm-hmm.
when they're fighting. So like they'll like change up, and so it'll be like one person hits, changes spots, and the next person hits, and it'll be one of those interesting little fights where they use that. And we see that fight at the end where we have all three of them fighting against this villain in this movie. And I think it's really interesting because after this, I feel like the only thing we can really guess is there's some tie to Ronin, which was the first villain, or not villain, but was related to Captain Marvel because he was in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think, Joan, you make a good point there, and Alex, I think you touched on it with the fight and they're changing the places. This team, quote unquote team, because they're not a team yet, but this dynamic between those three main characters is going to be really interesting to see play out on the screen. You've got this kind of youthful exuberance in Kamala, and that we saw in Miss Marvel, which I think was this looks like it's similar in tone. This movie, it looks like it's going to carry on that same train that Miss Marvel was on, which, to be fair, if it does, I'm all in. I really enjoyed Miss Marvel. It took me by surprise, but I really enjoyed it. So if this is similar in tone to that, then that's great. But yeah, you've got this youthful exuberance from Kamala. You've got this sort of stern, seasoned hero sort of cynicism from Carol, and then we don't really know much about Monica. She's probably quite a free spirit, I should imagine, but we've seen her a little bit in WandaVision. She seems quite down to earth, so I'm wondering whether she's going to be sort of in the middle of this kind of this relationship. You've kind of got Carol there that's going, come on, can we just get this done? And then Kamala that's just sort of pointing and laughing at everything and just hyped about everything. And there's going to be a little bit of not conflict, but Carol's just going to kind of roll her eyes at Kamala every now and again. So I think that's going to be really interesting watching the dynamic between those three.
is it just me, or does it seem like there's tension between Monica and Carol Danvers in this trailer for some reason? It seems like there's like non-spoken tension, like they almost don't want to look at each other, almost. Like
with everything that went down with Maria and the illness, and we don't know the full backstory on that. Was Carol absent off world when that happened? But also, too, the synopsis said that they were estranged, so that's going to be a more interesting dynamic between those two. And do they reconcile things, or are they just basically frenemies at this point going forward? Also, too, it was interesting that we didn't see Jan Rog at all in this film. We know he survived the first movie. And he said before the lack of scrolls also, because they were a big point in the first movie as well.
I think that estranged piece there, Joe, and that's really important because that plays into Carol's character, what we've seen and what we've heard other characters talk about Carol, that she just sort of turns up, in Endgame. I think they said, oh, you're going to be joining us, next month. And she says, oh, I don't know, I've got other things to do almost, not that she's sitting around with her feet up. She's obviously, like you said at the top of the video, Joan, she's off saving other worlds that haven't got Avengers, but she seems very much like one of those people who's very
independent.
She's off, she's I wouldn't say a typical military person, but that is typical of military people, isn't it? That they kind of come home for a little while and then they're gone again. And they come home and then they're gone again. And I think that is almost like what she's like. She sort of comes back to earth and then she leaves. without really going to see her family as such. And if Monica was her family and she never really saw her because she maybe felt bad about her mother dying or something like that. But there's definitely tension there between the two of them. Yeah, for sure.
Did you also notice the costume upgrades, specifically Carol's? Because Carol's looks more like Genius Vel's Captain Marvel suit in the film, in this one. Another thing too is that we finally get to find out who Park Si-joon is playing. So a lot of people thought he was playing Amadeus Cho, potentially in this movie, or someone else. I know the rumors were that early, but that's wrong. It sounds like he is playing Prince Yan of the musical planet Aladna. So
A musical planet.
yeah.
Looking forward to that one. I know a few people that are going to be excited to see a musical. Okay, that's interesting. They show you a couple of scenes of him, don't they? But not a great deal. But yeah, they look like they're going to go and see his world. If that was his world that they were traveling to, that it shows you, that looks interesting. What I'm interested to see is if there's ties in with Secret Invasion. I know you touched on it a minute ago, guys, about the jump points, and if that is some sort of when I first saw that, before she said jump points in the trailer, I was assuming that it was like an incursion or something that she was going up to see. But then obviously the jump points is what they use in Guardians, isn't it, to get around? And so I don't know whether there will be any ties into any setups into that, because there was a rumor a little while ago, wasn't there, that we was going to see an incursion in this movie.
Yep.
So I wonder if we will see that.
I'm very interested to learn how all three of their powers get intertwined. Like from across the galaxy, it seems Captain Marvel's like in a completely different part of space. Monica's in space, like right off Earth, like floating in orbit, like touching a jump point, and Kamala's on Earth. So I'm curious how like all three of their powers kind of get connected, and I'm really curious to see how this movie explains that, because I feel like they talk about it in this movie, but I have really no idea how they would make that happen after this.
Just trying to think of the origins of their powers. So obviously Carol's power comes from the Space Stone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Monica's power comes from
the Hex.
The Hex, yes, which is Wanda's power,
which came from the Mind Stone.
Came from the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
And then so Kamala's power comes from her obviously having this mutant gene that she's got, but also from the bangle as well, which we don't really know where that draws its power from just yet.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that bangle is tied to another Infinity Stone, because they have to be, right? So far that's 2 out of 3, so the third one's got to be it if we're following logic here. Also too, we got the Khan family back, which I love seeing more of them. I also wonder though, if we're going to see Gemma Chan's character in this film as well, since she was in the first Marvels, the first Captain Marvel. Any flashbacks? Is she going to go back to playing dual roles again in the MCU? So very interesting thought there on that.
Yeah. Okay, closing thoughts before we chop this video up. Alex, what are you thinking?
Man, like after watching this trailer, like I think the trailer is great, but like I feel like as for plot, like it gave us a lot of great shots, but I really still don't know what's happening in this movie, honestly, I think that's probably a good thing, for the most part, because I feel like it's going to give us a little bit of mystery, make us wonder a lot. It seems like they didn't really give us much meat on the bone to this trailer. This is all just kind of flashy, and I'm kind of curious to see what they do with it. So,
yeah, sure. Jarin, final thoughts.
I'm very excited for it. I just saw my wife the trailer before we came on here, and usually she likes to go see all the movies with me, but she was like generally excited to see this movie. She goes, "I'm going with you to see that movie when it comes out." So I think this movie will attract all different kinds of fans, especially if you like the Marvels. Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was $1 billion movie. So I hope this one does follow suit. It looks like another fun movie. I'm interested to see where this falls in the timeline. Before Secret Wars, after Secret Wars. Is it, we know it's after Miss Marvel series. We know that for sure. But that's going to be interesting, how their powers intertwine, how this connects to the larger multiverse saga. And, just to see where things go with Fury. But I'm very excited to see this film.
When does Secret Invasion come out?
June.
June. So it
21st
comes out after this, right?
Mhm.
So
Before-
this oh, before.
before this, yeah. So you got
Okay.
Secret Invasion in June 21st,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
this on November 10th.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say maybe this could lead into it, but I don't think they would place it that way if
I
they
think it might be the other way round, which is exactly why they haven't really shown us many plot points to this.
exactly.
You know, I mean, the trailer starts off with Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, next time we're going to see Nick is going to be in Secret Invasion, so I'm guessing that's where that tie happens. Okay, great, good stuff. Thanks for watching. Comics Evolved. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, drop us a comment, join us on our Facebook groups, wherever you are. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time.
See you
Bye.
guys.